WFNC.
News Talk 640 WFNC. Hey, Matt, I tell you, we got weather coming in. If we got weather coming in, we go to Greg Fishel. Greg Fishel, how are you today, sir?
Apparently, we just lost him. He was there. Hold on.
Well, we're calling Greg back. I saw him sitting there. He was sitting there in the lurch, waiting to come on live and tell us about this level 4 storm alert that's coming our way and going to threaten this particular area, especially down here, the Piedmonts and the Sand Hills. And it's shut down schools, as a matter of fact. Schools are closed here. Yes. You got them now? All right. Let me push the button again. Greg, are you there, sir?
No.
Well, every time we try and get you, you always hang up on us, but that's okay. We put up with your mess.
Don't take it personally,
Okay. Well, Greg, it's always a pleasure to have you here. We've got a level 4 storm alert, and that's an unusual thing to happen in this area. Talk about that a little bit, and what does that mean for us?
Yeah, it's on a scale of 1 to 5, and I think it probably is easier to understand talking numbers than it is the actual words they use. Like when you have marginal and enhanced and slight and all that, I think those can get rather confusing. But it's a little bit easier to say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, it's a 1 or it's a 4 or whatever. So it's not that often that we get up into the 4s and 5s, but we've got one of those today.
The particulars surrounding this storm, we're talking about a potential supercell. And I was trying to explain to everyone what that means in terms of the size of the potential hail that comes our way because of the updraft. Can you explain that to folks?
In terms of hail?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, when you have a hailstone that starts to fall, then it gets caught. First of all, it gets rain-coated, and then it gets caught in an updraft and gets thrown back up. And so that water then freezes, making the stone bigger, and then it falls, it gets caught in another updraft, and then it grows through the same process. And eventually it gets to the point where it weighs so much that the updraft isn't strong enough to suspend it anymore, and it just comes on down. But if the updraft is strong enough and it goes through that cycle enough times, it can get pretty darn big before it actually reaches the ground.
And cause some pretty severe damage. Have you seen softball size or golf ball size hail in the course of action?
I've never seen the softball and baseball myself, but I've certainly, seen the footage of it in other places and so forth. And, out of the nation's midsection, where it's like Tornado Alley out there, they have updrafts that are just amazing, and they can suspend those hailstones, for a long time. And so they'll end up getting these, incredibly sized hailstones. Like they've actually had grapefruit-sized hail
sure.
out there. So that's pretty amazing stuff to see.
What about the potential here for EF2 tornadoes? What are you seeing in your forecast?
Well, one of the things that leads to tornado potential is what we call strong vertical wind shear. And in recent years, we've discovered that the lowest kilometer, and, in meteorology and really science in general, we do everything in metric. But in the lowest kilometer, that's real critical in terms of whether or not you get tornadoes or not. And what's interesting about this, Gilbert, is that if you have a wind that increases rapidly with height, okay, think about like a telephone pole that is suspended in the air. And if the wind is blowing stronger on the top of that pole than it is the bottom, then it's going to start to spin. Okay, but it's not going to spin about a vertical axis. It's actually going to start to spin about a horizontal axis, and that's not the way tornadoes operate. They spin about a vertical axis, and so what has to happen to get that to change? Well, you have this stuff spinning about a horizontal axis, and then an updraft and a thunderstorm comes along, and it tilts that rotation axis into the vertical. And then at that point, then you have the potential for a tornado to develop. So you need the vertical wind shear first, and then you have the updraft with the thunderstorm that tilts it, and then you're in business.
You've been monitoring this system that's going to pass through North Carolina. The whole state right now is under a threat of severe weather, but the risk very particular to the Piedmont Sandhills and the coastal plains area. Why is that? Why do we have a greater potential here?
Well, in this particular situation, it looks like the timing is such that the strongest storms won't get here until very late in the afternoon. And one of the things that thunderstorms thrive on is heat. And so the later in the day that the system comes through, the more chance there is to get heating from the sun, and the atmosphere becomes more unstable. And then you maximize that by it coming in later in the afternoon and the evening. If it came in like through the morning, then we don't have time to build that heat up, and so you don't get nearly the potential that you do when it waits a little bit.
Yeah, we've covered these storms, and I've been out there when these tornadoes come through at night when it's dark, which is scary. Yeah. And you've seen them roll through, and they can come during the day, and you hope you're okay, but it's what you can't see that's really troublesome for folks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember back in March of 1984, when we had that big outbreak, all of that occurred, when it was dark. And the one in 2011 was during the course of the daytime. So that was all, broad daylight for that. Now, in the Raleigh tornado in November of 1988, that was Thanksgiving weekend, that occurred at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was no watch and no warning. So not only did it occur at night, but, nobody had any idea that it was coming.
Yeah, you remember the tornadoes that came through Red Springs? I mean, these storms can be deadly, and you've covered these deadly storms. We try to warn folks to stay out the way. And Kenny and I were making a comparison between the hurricane and your time to prep for a hurricane as opposed to a tornado. It comes and was without warning, and it can be deadly very quickly.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, in fact, with hurricanes, when they first come off the coast of Africa, the disturbance that leads to it, by the time it finally gets within striking distance, it's like, can we finally stop talking about this thing?
Right.
Because it's been, a subject for so long. But, you're absolutely right that these types of things pop up real quickly. And the one thing that I tried to point out yesterday is that the Storm Prediction Center, when they put these outlooks out, they have probabilities. And like, for instance, they'll say the probability of getting a tornado is like 30% within 25 miles of a point. Okay? So obviously, if it's 30% within 25 miles of a point, then the probability of it actually occurring at a point is going to be less than that. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so people get all upset, like when a warning's issued and they go to their basement or their closet or wherever they go, and they stay there for a half hour. And
actually, you just show up.
Okay.
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 Yeah. But anyways, they'll be there for a half hour, and then where they are, nothing happens, and they say, "Oh gosh, I wasted 30 minutes of my life," and I'm sitting there going, "Don't be mad, be thankful." I'd rather overwarn you and have you be okay than underwarn and have you, have somebody in your family severely injured or even killed. We wish that the science was at the point where we could say, yeah, this house is going to get it and this house isn't, but guess what? We're not there yet. And we're not going to be there for a while. And so there's always going to be people that are going to be taking action and ending up being okay. And, I would consider that to be a blessing as opposed to an inconvenience.
Yeah, well, Greg, look, we always appreciate your insight on these storms as they come our way. And for those of you who don't know, Greg was down in Myrtle Beach for some time, and now you have returned back to Wake County up in Fuquay, and people can actually see your forecast. Give us the lowdown on how people can watch what you do now.
Yeah, well, I'm actually, for somebody who actually despised social media when it first came about, it's now my lifeline. So it's sort of ironic. But the main thing that I do is on a platform called Patreon, Patreon. And then if you go to patreon.com/fishweather, all one word, then you can see these videos that I make once a day. Usually get them out about 6:30 in the evening. And, I've got graphics and statistics and all that sort of stuff. And it's $3 a month. I tried to price it, in such a way that it's not a budget buster. But it's pretty much what I did on WRAL. It's just that now I don't have somebody at the end of 3 minutes telling me to shut up.
Right. Or just the weatherman rap is what they said, is what I used to say.
Yes, exactly. And it's fun, it's I've got my little green screen here in my second bedroom, and so I get a chance to do what I've always done, but not have the time limit. And I always do the forecast first, so that if you don't have time or the interest in all the extra information, you don't have to sit through that. But if you are interested in those things, it's there for the taking.
All right, well, Greg, we always appreciate the no warning. I just give you a call and say, hey, Kenny's going to call you at so-and-so time, and we need an update on what's happening here, specifically in Cumberland County and in Fayetteville as these storms make their way through. Of course, everyone needs to take precaution. And we always tell folks to go to the innermost room of your house, be it a closet or a bathroom, I guess. And also, I guess the best thing to do, I told Doris, if something happens for us, for example, under the staircase is the best place to go, and you get a some type of pot to put on your head, because people don't understand that these storms cause damage. Like, for example, a hurricane. I've stood in them. You've seen me out there, and I'm not going to be killed by the sand or the wind. It's the stop sign that's being thrown through the wind that all of a sudden hits people. And you've seen these storms where they take a 2x4 and a tornado will throw it like a spear.
Oh gosh, yes, yeah, absolutely. It's pretty amazing what these things can do. And then, of course, when you're dealing with hurricanes, I think people always underestimate the force of water. It's really quite amazing how strong water is. And I guess if you get hit by a big wave, you get some indications that's the case.
Absolutely. All right, well, Greg, it's always a pleasure to talk with you, and we'll hopefully weather the storm without any too much damage. And, of course, we keep everybody in our prayers that everyone stays safe and there's no fatalities.
Exactly. And again, take every warning seriously. The chance of, even if there is a tornado, the chance of it being over your particular house is small. But if it is and you're not prepared for it, that's a lethal setup. So,
absolutely.
I'd always rather be prepared and be able to weather the storm than have no idea that it's coming, or ignore it and say, oh, yeah, I've heard this before and never happened. Well, that may be the time.
All right, Greg Fishel, the official meteorologist, here to give us some insight to the storm that's going to be passing through our area today. Greg, thank you so much. We appreciate you on no notice giving us a call.
No problem at all. You have a great day.
All right, you're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC. We've got Fayetteville's most dependable forecast with CBS 17 meteorologist Matthew Huddleston.
A CBS 17 weather alert day is in effect for the possibility of severe storms late this morning and during the afternoon hours. Otherwise, mostly cloudy with a high in the upper 70s. Storms come to an end early by this evening, with skies clearing out overnight as cold air comes rushing in. A low by tomorrow morning just in the lower 30s, and then a lot of sunshine but chilly for St. Patrick's Day, a high in the lower 50s. That's your Fayetteville forecast. I'm CBS 17 meteorologist Matthew Huddleston.
Matthew, thank you so much. Right now, 68 degrees in Fayetteville, Hope Mills, and also in Pembroke. You're listening to News Talk 640 with WFNC.
Fayetteville's first in news and information for 4